that office call I submitted to the insurance, I think it was like a $39 bill. Okay, that's all it was. 8 months later, and multiple submissions, I got paid $8 between the resubmissions and paying the staff to resubmit and waiting all those months for payment. And I said at that time, yeah, I have to move away from this. This is not for me.
Hello, and thank you for joining the Dare to Be Different podcast. Today, I'm interviewing a very respected colleague of mine, Dr. Ken Maller. I've met Ken over 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago. I have the utmost respect for Dr. Maller. I rarely talk to him, but I attribute much of my success in orthokeratology to Ken. He taught us single-handedly how to design and fit custom-made Ortho-K lenses. So although I don't talk to him much, I have this utmost respect for him. The reason I invited him today is a person on our Ortho-K group asked, hey, I've been in practice 40 years, and I'm thinking of dropping the insurances. Anybody else out there do it? And Ken responded very honestly and openly. So, Ken, I wanted to thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Happy to be here, and thanks for the invite, Nick.
Ken, let's start as an introduction. When did you graduate? Where did you graduate from? And how did you end up? What was your path to where you end up today?
Sure. Well, my path of where I ended up today actually started back in the 80s. Well before optometry school. I was interested in pursuing optometry as a career, and I had joined a practice in New York that was a basically contact lens focused practice. I learned at the time modification of rigid lenses, because this was back in the 80s. Soft lenses were really just coming in to replace a lot of the older hard lenses, but still gas perms were there. And I learned sort of the hand skills to measure and modify lenses right there on the job. I was fascinated with the physics, the biology, the intersection of these sciences. And so when I entered optometry school, which was in Chicago, that was ICO, I had graduated in 91. My goal going through optometry school was to head toward a contact lens only practice. So it's actually been a very, very old path that was set up well before optometry school. And as soon as I came out, my single focus was to get to doing all specialized types of contact lens services. And so when I graduated in 91, I joined a practice that was a single doctor private practice that he had been at that time already a 30-year hard lens fitter.
Wow.
And I understood upon graduation that I did not have the skills that I needed, and learning from someone who had been in it for 30 years was certainly going to be sort of my next step in evolution of learning what I needed to understand about trying to get these lenses into service and performing admirably. And so I worked there for about 4 years, honing and developing skills, getting the correct type of patient base. And interestingly, at that time, that practice had a division probably about 80-20, where 20% of the practice was contact lenses and rigid lenses at that. And certainly at that stage in the 90s, that would have been considered truly an odd type of practice. Here now, all these years later, I have a virtually 100% gas perm practice. And so I've certainly taken that and run with that in a very, very specific direction. So I opened up cold in 1995, and it was tough. I had to sign up to get some patients in the door. I had an optical at the time. Every day I would walk in the practice. I had taken some retail space. I walked, I'd open up the front door, walk through the optical, and sort of shirk and sort of grizzle at the point that I have all this inventory and money tied up there, and I really wanted to do contact lenses. I really wasn't interested in glasses at the time, but anyway, I walked through all of that, and within probably about, I want to say about 3.5, 4 years of running a solo private practice, I had already skewed the general practice to about 80% contact lenses and 20% glasses, which is already a very, very unusual division of services and the like. But that was what I really wanted. I ended up closing up that practice due to a landlord dispute. I had a very, very big problem with my landlord, and so I had to move. I reached out to a colleague, an ophthalmologist colleague of mine, and called him up, and I said, listen, I'm really fighting with this landlord. You got any space down there for me? And he said, absolutely, Ken, come on down. We'll work out something. And so we struck up a rental agreement where I would rent space out of his office to do my work. When I started working over there, it became very, very apparent that it was going to be very, very difficult for me to run an optical because of the fact that I'm inside an ophthalmology practice.
Right.
And he had relied quite heavily on referrals from the local optometric community, and he didn't want people really seeing glasses, and I'm going to go ahead and sell glasses to these people. And so I didn't want the optical, he didn't want the optical, so I ditched the optical almost right there at the beginning. I never even put any glasses into that, and started when I started renting space there, I started really concentrating on building up everything contact lenses that I could. It was a very, very lean time, because in the move, I decided I was going to drop all of my third-party payors, including Medicare, because I was really tired of fighting with Medicare. I had lost so much money on all the specialty lens work that I had done and never been reimbursed from Medicare. Right. And so I had dropped everyone that was third-party and decided to take the plunge and sort of go out and say, I'm going to sell private services to anyone who wants to come in and purchase them. The joke at the time was, I have a very easy payment plan. Go up to the front, pay 100%, very easy, and we're done. And that was basically it. From 99, which is when I started that rental agreement, probably until about, I want to say 2004, there was no week that I didn't put in a minimum of 110 hours. It was a very, very long, thin, arduous process of getting people in the door, selling off contact lens services and making a living totally on contact lenses. It's not typical of an optometric practice.
Right. So let's unpack now, because there was a lot there. There was a lot there. And amazingly, our practices, although very dissimilar, there are some commonalities. If I got this right, you had an interest in contact lenses. You graduated from ICO about 1991.
Correct.
You joined a practice that was about 20% specialty contacts, 80% traditional optometry commodities, correct?
Right.
And then you, about 1995 or so, about 4 years after graduation, you branch out on your own. Correct. And you work this practice. You have an optical, because all of us did at that time. That was what you did. But it really, you had no interest in it. Your interest was specialty contact lenses.
That's correct.
So then from 1995, about 4 years later, you slowly transitioned that practice from 20% specialty contacts to 80%. Correct?
Well, when I opened up the solo private practice on my own, I don't even know that I could say that I started at 20% of contact lenses. My interest was in contact lenses, but I was getting, everyone who was shopping at the local supermarket walked by and they came in for glasses. Right. And so I can't even tell you in my first 6 months to a year what the percentage was, because I just don't remember it honestly anymore. But by the time I left that retail location and moved into where I had rented space, by the time I was making that move, I was already at 80% was contact lenses. That is correct.
Okay. So then in 1999, you have the dispute with this landlord.
Correct.
And you move your practice into an ophthalmological practice, but you decided, this is the important stuff, you decided to drop insurances, including Medicare, because of why? You said because you were sick and tired of not getting paid. Is that specifically from Medicare, or just in general, you were kind of frustrated? You know what? That's a big move. You left your location, you're moving into an ophthalmological practice with some records, I'm assuming. And what made you just drop those insurances?
Well, what had done before I left the retail, so I don't know if this was it was somewhere in that period between 95 and 99. I don't remember exactly what year it was, because I'm getting older and I just don't remember that stuff.
We all are.
Right, as happens to us all. But I remember distinctly a single patient that to this day, I still remember this. Okay. She came in and she came in for glasses. And in the conversation of the routine exam, I flipped her desire for glasses into a pair of gas perm multifocal lenses.
Okay.
And she had no intention of any of that. She did great. She paid me privately out of pocket because she was referred there by insurance. But she paid me and very handsomely for the time. I commanded reasonably decent fees at that time already. And I got her very successful in the gas perm multifocal lenses. And so she was thrilled with all that. Now, during that exam, though, I came across glaucoma possibility. And so I had said that to her, and she asked me, can I take care of that? And absolutely, I could take care of that because, again, I was taking care of everything.
Right.
As a matter of fact, back in those days, I took care of so much glaucoma. It was not an unusual thing for me to see 25 glaucoma cases in a day.
Wow.
I hate glaucoma, but but you have to pay the bills. Right. So I did tons and tons of glaucoma, despite the fact that I hated it. And I spotted something in her that I was a little concerned. It was a family history. The nerve looked a little funny. The pressures were a little wonky. And so I said, you know what? Let's get you back in. And she asked me at the time, is that covered by my insurance? And I said, well, yes, in fact, it is. So here she paid me out of pocket very nice fees for the gas perm multifocal lenses that I did. And she was back for one of her follow-ups. I had done a field, I had done an office call, a pressure, measured the pressure and stuff like that. And I think at the time, from what I remember, that office call I submitted to the insurance, I think it was like a $39 bill. Okay, that's all it was. All right. 8 months later, in multiple submissions, I got paid $8. And I said, at that moment, we're done. There is no reason for me to waste my time and energy and liability being paid
absolutely
for that kind of nonsense. That's the bad pay, slow pay, no pay.
Right.
And for what reason? Here I turned around and I made good money on the gas permeable multifocals that I fit her into. I had her as a patient. She was very, very satisfied with my services, and that ridiculous parity that existed, I'm sure still to this day exists to some degree, because I guarantee if an ophthalmologist had submitted for that, they would not have been paid $8 for it. But I was paid $8 for that, and it cost me a ton of money. I lost so much money on that. That was ridiculous, between the resubmissions and paying the staff to resubmit and waiting all those months for payment. And I had said at that time, yeah, I have to move away from this. This is not for me. And so when I moved over into the ophthalmological office to rent space, in addition to the optical being kind of a sore spot for the ophthalmologist, and I didn't want it anyway, there was also the issue that I would have to actually hire someone to do all the insurance billing, and I didn't need that kind of expense. And so I said, it's going to be tough, but let's trash that. Now, at the time that I trashed all of that third-party payment, The only one I was hanging on to was VSP at the time, because I had a decent VSP following.
Right.
And VSP came at me and said, yeah, but you don't have an optical. And I said, yeah, so I still can render care. I said, no, you need an optical in order to provide VSP services for our people. And I said, and with that, I said, that's fine. I'm not putting an optical in, and there's the door. You can take your insurance and deal with that too. And so that's where VSP bit the dust. And at that point, the only third-party payment that I had been receiving, or still on like panels, so to speak, was Medicare.
Okay.
And at the time, I think I was short something like $60K from Medicare for all the contact lenses that I had already delivered but never got paid appropriately for. And so I said, well, I think that's time to write off $60,000. Let's move on with my life.
And that's a lot of money at that time.
That's
You're
a ton
talking
of money.
about 20 years ago. In today's dollars.
Yeah, that was a ton of money. And again, it's not like they were beating down the door to come in and see me at the time. But, I made the decision. I said, listen, it's $60,000. I don't know how long and how much money it's going to cost me to get that money back, if I ever am going to get that back. And so I said, we're done with Medicare. VSP already, I've already shown them the door, and the other third-party stuff that I had, that was certainly a little less consequential to my practice. And so at that point, it was more practical for me to sort of reopen cold, but without any insurance sitting there in the practice. Now the problem is that I had moved from a retail exposure inside of a medical building that has no exposure, no walk-by traffic, and other than seeing maybe a little placard on the, outside the building, you wouldn't even know I was there.
Right.
So this was very challenging to get people in the door. Right. Bodies in the chair and to sell my services to them. So certainly between 99 when I entered that office, was back in May of 99. To somewhere around 2005 or so, I put in the hours and did not see a whole lot of money coming in. There was and the focus there was get people in the door. You got to get people in the chair. I know I can deliver the services, but I can't deliver to anyone who's not sitting there. Right. So that was really the focus of trying to get these people in the door, and slowly but surely, but it's not overnight. It takes time, especially the type of services I was offering. That's the type of stuff that really everything functions best through word of mouth, but this really had to function through word of mouth. It was, getting other people to refer other people in to see me.
Right.
I did go to see many of the docs, around town to try and get them to refer people in. And I don't know up in Jersey there, but I could tell you the animosity continues down here, certainly with our latest bill happening here between not every ophthalmologist. I work very, very well with the ophthalmologists that are in the office that I'm in now, but certainly the profession as a whole, there's a lot of animosity between optometry and ophthalmology, which I think is very sad and to the detriment of the public, because obviously no one's benefiting from that.
No one.
So it was very difficult to get professional referrals in. As I think you probably know, optometry referrals are almost even more difficult to get than ophthalmology referrals. And so that was pretty thin too. So it was really up to me to get people in the door so that I can provide the services that I did, and then get those people out there to start screaming my name from the tops of the mountains to get other people in.
Yeah, let's stop right there, because the podcast is Dare to Be Different. And every optometrist or eye professional listening to you has empathized with you. The Medicare issues, patients coming in only wanting what their plan covers, and you're trying to provide the best care possible to them. What is not spoken about is the lean years that you just kind of breezed over from 99 to 2004, 2005. Everybody that I've interviewed to date that has a specialty care practice, like Stephanie Wu and others, is they had to hit the pavement hard. And some of these through the pandemic. So there's just no easy path to where you want to be. And I think 99% of practitioners are just not willing to even possibly endure those lean years. You knocking on the door, you making these decisions of not taking insurances, not doing the dispensary, moving your location from a storefront to a out of sight setting. These are all decisions you had no way of knowing if they were going to be right or wrong. And then sure enough, 5 years into it, you're like, holy cow, did I make the right decision? This is really tough. And
That's
I
right.
think
5 years is a long time.
it's a long time.
Yeah.
For us, just to give you an idea, it's similar but different. 99, it's just so funny. 99 is when I made a decision to go from a general practice to primarily ortho-K practice in 99. Anthrax and 9/11 hit my office really hard to the point we closed down. So this is 20 years ago. And that's just when I happened to have dropped all those plans, including the one you mentioned. And I didn't know if I was going to make it for a year or two. And what I tell people that I speak to, if it doesn't kill you, it definitely makes you better. Because if you can get through those hard times, like many of us have during the pandemic, it just makes you stronger. It's just most of us allow that fear of, oh boy, I can't do those lean years, prevents us from making that decision. So we just keep doing what we're doing. So you could imagine if you just stayed where you were, you fought with that stupid landlord, you accepted the Medicare and you flipped people or you convinced people or you educated people. If you didn't make that decision, I think at this point you wouldn't be talking with me. You'd probably retire because you'd be so sick of just these insurances and resubmissions and 8 months later getting pennies on the dollar. You said zero return. It's actually negative return.
It's negative return.
Yeah. So now it's 2004, 2005. It's actually the year we met. You probably don't remember it, but I bet you, when did you start coming to Vision by Design?
Oh, I was actually before Vision by Design up at the GOS.
Okay.
At that very first meeting there I think that was 02. 03 was missed, I think, due to SARS.
Yeah.
It seems we have to deal with all of these various distractions
that,
they get in the way. But I was back there at 04, and then I was at the inception of when Vision by Design was being sort of formulated. Actually, back then, they had asked me to be on the board, and the only problem was I had no time. There was I was mired down in so much stuff, in getting my office running. I just couldn't devote any time to, and it wasn't VBD back then. That came afterwards. It was the OAA meeting, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
So I just didn't have the time to sit on the board, but that didn't matter. I was putting in the couple of pennies that I had available to make it to these meetings because they were important for me to make it to. Right. Also, coincidentally, right around 2000, I don't know if you were on that early, that was when Jim Edwards was putting together and releasing Wave, which was a brutal piece of software back in those days.
It still is sometimes.
And anyone who came in with those days remembers exactly it. But you knowing me, that was a godsend, because all of a sudden now I could take my rigid lens fitting to an entirely different level.
Right.
And so that was fantastic. And so I dove in 100% into that software. And that was its own interesting start there because of all of the problems encountered in moving sort of traditional approach to fitting into a software-based fitting, because at that time, no one had been doing any of that kind of stuff.
Trial and error,
but I embraced that, with big open arms and got that right into service as well, and allowed me to further differentiate my services from what was going on out there.
I think so. So just to review for a lot of people that are not old timers like ourselves, GOS was a global Ortho-K symposium. I was there in 2002 with you, but we didn't know one another at the time. And like you said, the next year, SARS canceled that meeting. And I've been to every meeting as you have ever since. And we have Kerry Herzberg and his team to thank for that, because they really developed that. 2005, like you, I started fitting wave lenses to differentiate myself, and I knew the potential of software, but I'm not as smart as you, man. And I remember I'm asking around. I'm not as smart as you. So in 2005, I'm in the hallway. Like I said, you learn more, I think, in the hallway than you do in the classrooms. And meeting you and your team, you had a bunch of wave study group people, and I'm the outsider. And you changed my life, man, because your IQ, and I mean this sincerely, is above most of us.
Oh, thank you.
Because that software was raw, but yet some of us knew the potential of it. And we met very briefly. You met my partner Ivan. I met Peter Wilcox and Dr. Herrero and was it Griswold? What was
Grosswald? Yeah, Grosswald and
you guys were a
Bartels.
team, and
Yeah.
you let me in. I was the outsider, and you changed our lives because then Ivan came to Florida to take your course. My partner Ivan, and he comes back and he says, "Holy moly! There's a whole opportunity there. I only understand like 10, 20%, but that was enough to take us to one level." And then Ivan went out there again and trained with you a second time. And now we keep talking about my partner Noah is going to come out to you because it's constantly developing. So at that time, even though you were starting to launch, all of us were looking to you as this person who understood something at a very deep level that we didn't. And like you said, those are the lean years. That's the price you pay to differentiate yourself. So now it's 2005. You're now in the zone. You have a patient base. Why don't you bring me up now, literally almost 20 years later? It's hard to believe. We're 2023. Where are you now? Did those lean years pay off? Did the decisions you make almost 20 years ago pay off?
I don't know if you know this or not, but prior to the pandemic, I have externs that rotate through the office from the optometry schools. They're actually set up through the ophthalmological practice.
Wow.
And the ophthalmological practice has its 10 schools on the roster that send externs through primarily for medical ophthalmology and seeing retina and all of that. And he had approached me along with the director of the program, who's an optometrist. Would it be okay if the externs rotate through with me? Because they definitely have an interest in contact lenses, and they're not really getting that from their formal education at the institutions, at least to the level of what I'm practicing at. And so I said, sure, absolutely. I'd be very happy for the externs. If they're interested in contact lenses, by all means, they can come in and I can work with them as well. And so probably starting somewhere around 04, 05, I started seeing roughly about 75 fourth-year optometry students for the year that would rotate through at different segments there. And the ones who were interested in contact lenses would spend more time with me, in fact, even than sometimes with the ophthalmological part of the practice. And when I would have the externs there, one of the first questions I would ask them is I would say, okay, what are you interested in? And I'd get, well, optometry. I said, no, that's the profession. What are you interested in doing? Well, I want to provide good care. I said, yeah. That's the means to an end, but what are you interested in doing? And it's amazing to me how many have not sort of brought into focus, even here in their fourth year, what it is that they envision their professional years to be doing. And I get it. They're mired down in studying and exams and boards and of course they're living, certainly the vast majority of them, on very lean budgets, trying to just get through school and all, and certainly we've all been there. We do understand that, but it still amazes me that here some of them are graduating, and sometimes they're graduating in 3 months, and they're like, where are you heading after this? And they haven't really given much thought. Not 100%, but a very large percentage of them. And as I told you earlier in this podcast, I knew where I was going before I even went into optometry school.
Right.
I had a very, very clear focus and a path where I wanted to go to. And I think that that's really important. And I'll tell every single one of them, second to your decision to enter optometry school, deciding your trajectory upon graduation is the single most important decision you need to make. Because if you pick wrong, you're going to go down a path that may be impossible or next to impossible to backtrack from. That's a very, very difficult thing. I know over the years, I've worked with a lot of doctors, not just Ivan, but I've trained many, many doctors out there. And I can't tell you, Nick, how many times I'll listen to a doctor tell me that, they've been practicing X number of years, the practice is going great, and they are miserable going to work every day. And I said, what an awful position to be in. I said, can't you do anything? Well, I have 10 employees and I can't just close the doors and do something different. And I want to do what you're doing with these specialty lenses. I said, well, but you can't just, close everything else up and do this tomorrow. You already have sort of a freight train in motion, and how are you going to do that? You don't have the skills to do it. You don't even have the knowledge of how to do it. And you have all of this other stuff that you are doing, and it's keeping you very, very busy. And how are you planning on just switching gears so easily? So trying to figure out that trajectory earlier on, it's much, much easier to follow through. Now, I will tell you honestly, flat out, did I foresee back in 1991 when I graduated that by the year 2005, 2006, I would be seeing more patients traveling in from out of the country than I would locally, and I would have no glasses? No, I didn't foresee any of that. That just grew from the work that I was doing. And everything that grew in the right direction, I capitalized on that and continued to try and foster that a little bit more, develop better skills, focus my study on the various studies that are coming out on everything anterior seg, everything cornea related, everything on the latest materials that are being used for rigid lenses. And I have a luxury in that I don't have to know the very latest glaucoma medication because I don't take care of that. And so I could devote my professional time really to what's relevant to my practice and what's only relevant to my practice. And as a consequence of that, that gives me a leg up to go even further than the general doc out there who's trying to add in specialty contact lens work while also doing glaucoma care and taking care of the diabetics and everything else, because they have to stay on top of that stuff as well. I don't. I see a retina that doesn't look pretty, and as quickly as I see it, I talk to the patient. Here's the doctor you want to go see. That's not for me to take care of. Not that I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And the same thing with glaucoma. So that's really sort of how things have progressed over the 20 years. I've been able to continually trim away all the things I don't like doing and concentrate all my energy, effort, and time on the things I really love doing, which is providing fantastic contact lens care, and sometimes beyond what's even thought possible. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the patients that I see have already seen a lot of contact lens experts. That's the reason they make the trip to see me. They've already failed with all of those, and I'm, they'll look me in the eye and say, Dr. Mahler, you're my last hope. And I said, well, that's a lot of stress. And how long are you going to be here for? Oh, 7 days. So you want me to solve? You've been working on this problem for 10 years with lots and lots of talented contact lens docs out there, and I'm going to solve it in 7 days. Okay, well, I'll do my best, but that's a lot of stress, obviously. Well,
there was a lot there also, and it's amazing. You and I teach residents. I've taught residents for 14 years, and I spend 3 months with them trying to find out nothing about ortho-K, nothing about optometry. What do you want out of life?
I came out of school, as many docs do. You have to service the debt that you accumulated, getting your education. And, you still have to put food in your mouth. And if you have a family, take care of the family. And,
absolutely.
So those are all obviously very, very big, important priorities in your life. And you have to sort of balance all of that out. And so like you were saying, you asked the residents about, what do you want to get out of life? I view optometry as the profession that I have molded around my passions and joys to provide me the ability to put food in my mouth, take care of my family. Thankfully, serviced my student loan debt many years ago away, and but to take care of all of that. But it's allowed me really to explore these very things that I'm very interested in exploring and providing the help to the patients that truly need it.
Right.
That's something that I've said in every single lecture that I've done. It's not about specialty lens fitting. It's about doing what's best for the patient. If a specialty lens is the answer, that's the thing you do. If it's not, you don't do that. You do something else.
That's 100% right. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's never too late. The problem is practitioners don't want the leanness to make the pivot. Like you said to these practitioners, if I come to you and I say, I want to be like you, well, that means I have to drop my dispensary. That means I have to drop these insurances, but you can't have it all. You can't be everything to everyone. That's correct. I feel like you. I not only do Ortho-K, I only do children, and I only do myopic children. Why? Because like you, I don't want to be distracted by all the rest. Can I do it all? Yes. But then the jack of all trades is the expert of none, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Yep. So this doctor, let's go back to the original question. She's in practice 40 years. She's thinking of dropping insurances. Most of her colleagues just sell, right? Because they've been on that treadmill for 40 years. They just want out at this point. Forget about pivoting. And your response was so sincere. It says, I dropped 30-party plans a number of years ago, but I can't lie. It was tough.
It absolutely is tough.
Would you recommend she does it now? She's 40 years in practice, give or take.
Every once in a while, in the consulting that I'll do, I'll go to a doctor's office, and I have to tell you, Nick, optometry has come so far. I'm talking about general optometry with all the toys and things that you guys can buy, and I look and said, wow, I start salivating. Boy, that's really some cool stuff you have here. And like for a brief flicker of a moment, I say, boy, that would really be fun to put in, and I could do all that work too. And then I said, no, I don't want to deal with that, because then you have to deal with the insurance, and then you have to deal with this, and then you have to deal with, that high volume, and that doesn't allow me to do what it is I really enjoy doing. And so, but for a brief flicker of a moment, I look at all that stuff and I say, boy, that really would be a lot of fun to set up an office like that, and have that running smoothly, like the smooth machinery that a lot of my colleagues have running there and all. But that's the other side of the trap is that when you're there, it's really hard to change that gear so easily. And I've said this to many. I said, at this stage in my career, I don't know that I have the energy to do a 90 degree or 180 degree turnabout and say I'm going to do something entirely different. It takes a lot of energy. Back in the 90s I had that kind of energy. Now I prefer to put my energies into things that are more about some time off, along with taking care of these very challenging cases. That's where I prefer to devote all the energy that I have to do. And I don't know that after 40 years in practice I would have all the energy to go ahead and say, let's just turn about 180 degrees. We'll drop all the insurance and ride it through some of those lean times while I'm getting the practice up and running in an entirely different direction. So, that's, I think, a self-assessment for any particular person who's going to, think about this seriously, not for an outsider to make that decision for them. I hope you didn't drop off again. Oh, you back?
I'm back, and we didn't lose anything, So
okay,
go ahead.
good.
You don't have the energy. So for her, 40 years.
That's a long time to be in a specific direction to say, all right, I'm going to abandon all that and I'm going to do something entirely different and develop everything that I need to do. And I'm going to sort of ride out those next few years that it's going to be kind of tight.
Yeah. Well, I can give you your advice to her was maybe don't do it all at once.
That's
because
correct.
What is the option? She keeps doing what she's doing and is obviously not happy, or right. She just sells her practice maybe to private equity, and then what do? You lose your identity at that point. So
That's true
your
too.
advice, I thought, was perfect, because I just interviewed someone for this podcast who just dropped it. He's younger than us, and he's in those lean years. He's in the valley. And I said to him, stick with it. This is the price you're paying for autonomy. That's how I view it.
That's
And I would
exactly
give
right.
her the same advice. Man, you have two options. Stick with what you're doing, or like Dr. Mahler and others have said, maybe do it slowly. Because the only other choice is to sell your practice, but you're going to take yourself wherever you're going to go. You're going to start something new or just retire. And I think both of us are having too good of a time to retire. Yeah, maybe our energy is not there, but certainly we've paid the price for our success.
Well, interesting you brought that up. I just had a patient in from, ask me the patients I just saw this week, Washington State, Maine, Connecticut, and out of the country. I had someone from out in one of the islands there and all. So all these people just traveled in to see me. And interestingly enough, one of the patients from Washington State, who's been now coming to see me, it's a post-LASIK patient whose life was destroyed by LASIK. She's been seeing me now for just about 20 years. And her husband had said to me, even this last time, he said, I don't think you realize that you saved my wife's life 20 years ago, because she was ready to cash out because this was so devastating to her life. And she had said to me, we're both getting a little bit older now. Are you planning on retiring? And I said, absolutely not. I'm actually having the most fun in my entire professional career. I'm more involved now with the development of the technologies to even further our contact lens designs, both in terms of measurement as well as the application of optics that before were impossible to do. And I'm in the thick of guiding the development for this stuff, which is what I've been looking and doing for the past 30 years that I've been practicing. And so this is by far the single most exciting time of my professional career. So I certainly have no intention of retiring. I want to continue doing this for as long as I still can do it.
And that sums it all up, in my opinion, because you paid the price. But look at your voice now. Just your tonality is here. You are practicing 3 decades, and you're so damn happy, as opposed to the majority of people who may have not made the decision that was right for them. It's not right for everyone. Right. Endure the lean years, endure the risks, take your lumps and bumps, but the result is so much more richer at the end, and not financial richness.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There is no greater joy that I have when I will take a patient that might have traveled, 5,000 miles to see me after seeing countless numbers of doctors and going through all types of various treatments that have been totally unsuccessful, bring them success, give them back their lives. I get to go home and with a big smile on my face, I did a great thing today. And that's the whole ball of wax right there.
That's a whole ball of wax. That's why we got into optometry. That's why we became health professionals. Ken, listen, I am telling you, despite all the technical difficulties we've had, I just think you really helped so many people out. You've gave everybody listening a lot to think about. Your decision, my decision, may not be the right decision for somebody else, but at least they have heard it from someone who was transparent and honest, and really heard to reap the rewards of your decisions.
You're absolutely right. Nick, the whole thing is all about, I think, crystallizing your goals, whatever they happen to be for you. What is it that you want to achieve, and what is it that
100%.
you want to get out of this? Get that into crystal clear focus, and then set a path out to get there. That's the goal.
That 100%. And the only thing I could say, it's never too late, man.
No, it's never too late.
One shot at this life. So
No,
whether you're there
right.
1 year or 40 years, do it your way. That bottom line. So Ken, I'm going to come out there. I told you I'm going to send Dr. Noah. How do people who want to learn more about custom design lenses get information from you? What's your website?
The website is noblur.com. That's NOBLUR.com, no spaces. It's primarily an educational site. There's information there primarily for patients. However, there is a tab there for consultation services or on the top menu there. And if you get to the consultation services, you can see various avenues to help, because what may help Noah may not be appropriate for Ivan.
Right.
And so the consultation services are really tailored to the individuals, what their weaknesses are, what their goals are, and what it is that they're trying to get out of it. I can tell you that I've been doing, I don't know if you've been catching it, but I'm doing a webinar series for WAVE over the past couple of years, and it's ongoing now, which is laying down foundational concepts that are absolutely vital to understanding both design as well as how do you use software to actually get to a goal that you're trying to get to. And they are very, very rudimentary. And as a result of that, what I will have to say is my phone consultation time has gotten much, much busier because of the fact that it doesn't take away the person from their practice. What it is we set up a time that we meet, and I work with them through something online, just like we're at Zoom here or Skype or whatever platform online, where I get to see their screens and help them through some of their design difficulties, as well as case difficulties. Sometimes there are cases that have gone totally off the tracks, and I will get these cases back and up and running again. So there are various avenues of help available to any of my colleagues that are looking to, up their game or possibly even save the quagmire that they found themselves in, with various cases, or just general knowledge that they're really trying to understand that they can move their practice in more in this type of a direction. So they can find all that stuff on the website there, and it's all clearly laid out. And if they have further questions, they certainly can email me directly from the website. That's perfectly fine as well.
Yep. And I have no vested interest in mentioning Ken, promoting Ken. I have one sentence at meeting because I'm actually intimidated by him at times because of his knowledge base. But I have to tell you, his course, his help is extremely valuable.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Nick. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
I want to thank you for coming on.
I enjoyed it as well, Nick. And I'm glad we had the chance to talk.
I look forward to seeing you in September.
Yep, absolutely.
And to the audience, remember, it's your life, your practice, your way. Have a great day.